The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. Chapter 7. While I was in this bewildered frame of mind, sorely needing a little quiet time by myself to put me right again, my daughter Penelope got in my way, just as her late mother used to get in my way on the stairs, and instantly summoned me to tell her all that had passed at the conference between Mr. Franklin and me. Under present circumstances, the one thing to be done was to clap the extinguisher on Penelope's curiosity on the spot. I accordingly replied that Mr. Franklin and I had both talked of foreign politics till we could talk no longer, and had then mutually fallen asleep in the heat of the sun. Try that sort of answer when your wife or your daughter next worries you with an awkward question at an awkward time, and depend on the natural sweetness of women for kissing and making it up again at the next opportunity. The afternoon wore on, and my lady and Miss Rachel came back. Needless to say how astonished they were when they heard that Mr. Franklin Blake had arrived, and had gone off again on horseback. Needless also to say that they asked awkward questions directly, and that the foreign politics and the falling asleep in the sun wouldn't serve a second time over with them. Being at the end of my invention, I said that Mr. Franklin's arrival by the early train was entirely attributable to one of Mr. Franklin's freaks. Being asked upon that whether his galloping off again on horseback was another of Mr. Franklin's freaks, I said yes, it was, and slipped out of it, I think very cleverly, in that way. Having got over my difficulties with the ladies, I found more difficulties waiting for me when I went back to my own room. In came Penelope, with the natural sweetness of women, to kiss and make it up again, and, with the natural curiosity of women, to ask another question. This time she only wanted me to tell her what the matter was with our second housemaid, Rosanna Spearman. After leaving Mr. Franklin and me at the Shivering Sand, Rosanna, it appeared, had returned to the house in a very unaccountable state of mind. She had turned, if Penelope was to be believed, all the colours of the rainbow. She had been merry without reason, and sad without reason. In one breath she had asked hundreds of questions about Mr. Franklin Blake, and in another breath she had been angry with Penelope for presuming to suppose that a strange gentleman could possess any interest for her. She had been surprised, smiling, and scribbling Mr. Franklin's name inside her work-box. She had been surprised again, crying and looking at her deformed shoulder in the glass. Had she and Mr. Franklin known anything of each other before today? Quite impossible. Had they heard anything of each other? Impossible again. I could speak to Mr. Franklin's astonishment as genuine when he saw how the girl stared at him. Penelope could speak to the girl's inquisitiveness as genuine when she asked questions about Mr. Franklin. The conference between us, conducted in this way, was tiresome enough until my daughter suddenly ended it by bursting out with what I thought the most monstrous supposition I had ever heard in my life. "Father," says Penelope, quite seriously, "there's only one explanation of it. Rosanna has fallen in love with Mr. Franklin Blake at first sight." You have heard of beautiful young ladies falling in love at first sight, and have thought it natural enough, but a housemaid out of a reformatory, with a plain face and a deformed shoulder, falling in love at first sight with a gentleman who comes on a visit to her mistress's house, match me that in the way of an absurdity out of any story-book in Christendom if you can. I laughed till the tears rolled down my cheeks. Penelope resented my merriment in a rather strange way. "I never knew you cruel before, father," she said very gently, and went out. My girl's words fell upon me like a splash of cold water. I was savage with myself for feeling uneasy in myself the moment she had spoken them, but so it was. We will change the subject, if you please. I am sorry I drifted into writing about it, and not without reason, as you will see when we've gone on together a little further. The evening came, and the dressing bell for dinner rang before Mr. Franklin returned from Fritzinghall. I took his hot water up to his room myself, expecting to hear, after this extraordinary delay, that something had happened. To my great disappointment, and no doubt to yours also, nothing had happened. He had not met with the Indians either going or returning. He had deposited the Moonstone in the bank, describing it merely as a valuable of great price, and he had got the receipt for it safe in his pocket. I went downstairs, feeling that this was rather a flat ending after all our excitement about the diamond earlier in the day. How the meeting between Mr. Franklin and his aunt and his cousin went off is more than I can tell you. I would have given something to have waited at table that day, but, in my position in the household, waiting at dinner, except on high family festivals, was letting down my dignity in the eyes of the other servants, a thing which my lady considered me quite prone enough to do already, without seeking occasions for it. The news brought to me from the upper regions that evening came from Penelope and the footman. Penelope mentioned that she had never known Miss Rachel so particular about the dressing of her hair, and had never seen her look so bright and pretty as she did when she went down to meet Mr. Franklin in the drawing-room. The footman's report was that the preservation of a respectful composure in the presence of his betters and the waiting on Mr. Franklin Blake at dinner were two of the hardest things to reconcile with each other that had ever tried his training in service. Later in the evening we heard them singing and playing duets, Mr. Franklin piping high, Miss Rachel piping higher, and my lady on the piano, following them, as it were, over hedge and ditch, and seeing them safe through it in a manner most wonderful and pleasant to hear through the open windows on the terrace at night. Later still I went to Mr. Franklin in the smoking-room, with the soda-water and brandy, and found that Miss Rachel had put the diamond clean out of his head. "She's the most charming girl I've ever seen since I came back from England," was all that I could extract from him, when I endeavoured to lead the conversation to more serious things. Towards midnight I went round the house to lock up, accompanied by my second-in-command, Samuel, the footman, as usual. When all the doors were made fast, except the side door that opened on the terrace, I sent Samuel to bed and stepped out for a breath of fresh air, before I, too, went to my bed in my turn. The night was still and close, and the moon was at the full in the heavens. It was so silent out of doors that I heard from time to time, very faint and low, the fall of the sea as the ground-swell heaved it in on the sandbank near the mouth of our little bay. As the house stood, the terrace side was the dark side, but the broad moonlight showed fair on the gravel walk that ran along the next side to the terrace. Looking this way, after looking up at the sky, I saw the shadow of a person in the moonlight, thrown forward from behind the corner of the house. Being old and sly, I forbore to call out, but being also unfortunately old and heavy, my feet betrayed me on the gravel. Before I could steal suddenly round the corner, as I had proposed, I heard lighter feet than mine, and more than one pair of them, as I thought, retreating in a hurry. By the time I had got to the corner, the trespassers, whoever they were, had run into the shrubbery off the side of the walk, and were hidden from sight among the thick trees and bushes in that part of the grounds. From the shrubbery they could easily make their way over our fence into the road. If I had been 40 years younger, I might have had a chance of catching them before they got clear of our premises. As it was, I went back to set a-going a younger pair of legs than mine. Without disturbing anybody, Samuel and I got a couple of guns and went all round the house and through the shrubbery. Having made sure that no persons were lurking about anywhere in our gardens, we turned back. Passing over the walk where I had seen the shadow, I now noticed for the first time a little bright object lying on the clean gravel under the light of the moon. Picking the object up, I discovered it was a small bottle, containing a thick, sweet-smelling liquor as black as ink. I said nothing to Samuel, but remembering what Penelope had told me about the jugglers, and the pouring of the little pool of ink into the palm of the boy's hand, I instantly suspected that I had disturbed the 3 Indians, lurking about the house, and bent in their heathenish way on discovering the whereabouts of the diamond that night. End of chapter 7.